and Taxify, especially midweek. And then where the commission is concerned, with the regulation, we need some guidance to how the companies are going to, how you're going to impose regulation regarding commission. At the moment, the companies just charge whatever they please.
Thank you. And maybe just to get a clarity, Ms. Machals, you indicated, just to try and understand, when you were making submissions on commissions, you indicated that I think there's a 14% that you indicated. Is it, is that from one of the two, Uber or Taxify, or is this a new entrant into the market?
The 14% is actually a new entry into the market, which is Mashaba. They're trying to break into the Port Elizabeth market at the moment. And they have come to the point that they've indicated 14%. Taxify is 15%, and Uber is 25% of the total, of your total trip fee, basically. What they've also brought in, our Uber has brought in a tier structure for drivers. So if you are a loyal driver and you do a certain amount of trips, you've done over 5,000 trips, and you've got a very high rating with regards to clients and everything, then they drop the commission rating to about, say, 22.5% or 20% total commission.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Suf.
Thanks, Chair. Just a follow-up question on the rate per kilometer. That is the fare structure that Uber uses. Are you able to cover your operational costs, taking into account the 25% commission?
Yes, we can, but at a very small margin, depending on the vehicle you drive. At the moment, our profit margin, depending on the vehicle, is between 1 rand cents to not even 1 rand 90 cents per kilometer, which is very small. Before Uber and Taxify, the metered taxi industry was regulated at 10 rand a kilometer. Now we're sitting at 7 rand a kilometer, almost 5 years later. And at the fuel price that we are currently sitting at, it just doesn't make sense to us.
And would you agree that that is not sustainable over time?
Unfortunately, it is not sustainable. And with the current fuel price, if we should get another fuel price increase, I'm not sure how a lot of the guys are surviving, especially guys who don't drive for themselves.
Are there any Uber partners who have stopped their operations?
Yes, there is. The exact amount I won't be able to give you, but guys are just getting out. And what's happening without regulation, Uber go through such a lot of guys getting on the platform every week. Currently, Uber PE, they have 2 driver assessors, and the guys go through 20 that is ready to get on the platform every week. So 2 to 3 months, if the guys see they're not making money, it is not.
Thank you, Mr. Lesufe. Mr. Mandiris.
Okay, thank you. I just want to get, a clarity questions. How did Uber recruit you, and did they make any promises in terms of your assistance in the application process for operating licenses?
Basically, what Uber does, they advertise through various social media platforms which is anything from Gumtree, Facebook, as well as their own website and everything like that. They did place at one stage ads in the newspaper and everything. If you want to earn, obviously, money, and they haven't made any direct promises to us. That is not what they do. What they're actually doing is they indicate to you that it's an income base for you to earn extra money or a living, but it's not a full-time thing. That's what they really do indicate to us. It's some way to just make that extra money to feed your family. But at the end of the day, there unfortunately is people out there that is using it for a full-time basis, because there is not, unfortunately, work out there. So people are doing this on a permanent basis to get income. And unfortunately, we have no choice but to use it as an income basis because, I mean, cost of living is high. Everything is high at the moment. If we do not work, what are we going to do? We are going to then sit unemployed and look at our government, unfortunately, for assistance and things like that, which is not going to be there. We need to look after ourselves at the end of the day. We utilize this as a platform to make that money and to get out there.
But with respect to operating licenses, was there any assistance or any promise made?
No, unfortunately, all they say is that you need to go to the Department of Transport and then a request for a meter taxi permit, and then you have to apply through them. They haven't indicated or offer any assistance at all, not Uber or Taxify.
So there's no Uber or Taxify offices in Port Elizabeth?
There are offices, but unfortunately those offices are only to help people with regards to getting information, with regards to getting how to fix different things on Uber, or if you have problems with clients leave stuff in your car, and that's it. And if there is any other problems, they'll send it over to head office, and then head office will contact you, which takes a while, unfortunately. And they're not open on weekends or past a certain time during the day.
So as far as you know, for people who, I think you have said a year, during the moratorium, because I see Uber launched 2 years or so in PE, and I think according to my recollection, maybe it was launched during when you already have a moratorium in place for meter taxi operators. How are the Uber drivers that were not part of the meter taxi business, how are they currently operating? Are they using an application form or a receipt or?
They're currently using an application receipt. And I think that is where the fight between Uber and the department is also coming into place. Because according to the department, you are not allowed to even operate with the receipt. But yet Uber and Taxify them are allowing you to operate with the receipt. So that actually stemmed from 2 years back already in Port Elizabeth. The moratorium only came into place last year around June side, that it came into place. So at the end of the day, I mean, that is something that the department needs to discuss with the company. But now obviously we've been put on hold and we can't get our permits because of the infighting between the two at the moment.
So in a case where a vehicle is impounded, does Uber or Taxify assist the driver partners in, let's say it's a traffic violation, maybe someone is operating illegally. Do you get any assistance since they have allowed you to operate on their platform?
Look, I know in Cape Town and in Joburg they have paid for the impound fees, Uber. We haven't had that case in Port Elizabeth where a vehicle was impounded or anything like that. So they haven't actually indicated whether they will be assisting or anything. Taxify, unfortunately, does not assist at all with regards to impound fees or anything like that. I know in Cape Town, they do actually reimburse the driver partners.
Then I think from your own experience, do you think there is capacity for more, e-hailing, or drivers, to operate in PE, for instance?
Look, at the moment, if we have to look at it, with Taxify coming into place, a lot of people that are not on Uber has actually joined Taxify as well. We actually need to look at some point calling a limit because we are going to fluctuate the market to such an extent that there's too many. The people that are actively working the whole systems or the e-hailing systems right now, the driver partners that are active, let them be, you know, and then control it from there, and then see how it goes on a yearly basis, instead of just flooding the market because you think there's high demand or low demand. There's some cases that during the week, if you don't work yourself properly or you don't check your times or how to fluctuate in between times, that you can not even make 500 Rand. And that is bad on a day-to-day basis. If you want to see money, unfortunately, on the Uber and the Taxify apps, you need to make sure that you obviously, your target should be 1,000 Rand a day. If your target's 1,000 Rand a day, you need to say, okay, for 1,000 Rand a day, I use a tank of petrol, everything. So you need to now aim a little bit more than the 1,000 Rand a day so that you have a tank of petrol the following day as well, which can fluctuate easily between 500 to 800 Rand for a tank of petrol. So now you need to make sure that you have your tank of petrol for the following day as well. But that 1,000 Rand, you need to make sure that you have in your pocket, because then you're not making money and you're not working smartly on that.
So if you compare, you know, when you joined and now, is it getting difficult to make your target, or is basically the same?
It is actually getting difficult to make your target. If I look at when I joined last year versus now, like I indicated, my profit margin has dropped between 30 to 40% already at the end of the day. Where I used to make easily a good sum of money a week, I am struggling to even reach half of that amount now.
So I think from an outsider, is that not maybe an indicative that maybe the moratorium that the municipality and the PRI have put in place, maybe to some extent it might be justified, because maybe, you know, the low margins, they're not suggestive of a saturated market, for instance?
I can understand if it's justified when they've actually got some structure and things like that in place, indicating what e-hailers are out there, what meter cabs are out there. But currently, all they're saying to us the whole time is that they are still doing a survey. They're not giving any feedback with regards to the survey or anything that they've done. You know, it's out there at the moment, maybe because also your profit margins are dropping because of fuel prices, because of your maintenance increases. Now, Uber hasn't increased their prices for 2 to 4 years, yeah, since it started. They only just increased their prices because we were indicating to them that we are tired of having the same prices, and we were just arguing and fighting with them the whole time. That is why they've increased now, but not also to a huge extent. They increased it by a small margin at the end of the day, but the fuel price is still continuously being hiked at the end of the day. So the most expensive things that we're looking at the moment, unfortunately, is the constant fuel price increases that is hitting us hard, the maintenance and things like that, that is obviously also increasing. Everything is going up with regards to our cars and making sure that they're in top shape, because obviously we need to make sure we carrying passengers. We want to make sure our tires, our cars are being serviced on a regular basis, our brakes and everything is working, the cars constantly neat and clean. Those are all standards that they have put out for us that we need to adhere to. If something is wrong with your car, they take you off the platform instantly. If you were in an accident or somebody's complained that your car's dirty inside or anything like that, you get taken out. So you have all those costs that are running costs that you constantly have to make sure that is being maintained. So those are all things. With regards to the monetarium and everything being out there, the monetarium I can understand if they actually said, okay, they got so many illegal vehicles, they got so many vehicles that are old vehicles, that guys are trying to get new vehicles for themselves, or that the people have permits already and they're renewing constantly, but they're not coming forth and communicating us or giving us a platform to even speak to them at all.
I think you indicate, I think, in your response that you have an expectation that e-hailing services and meter taxis, in terms of the moratorium, that they should be looked at separately. Do you think, from your own experience, that there is a distinction between the e-hailing as a service and the meter taxis as a service from a planning authority's perspective? If I am a municipality, I'm looking at e-hailing and meter tax. Should I, when I do my demand estimates? Should I look at them separately, or they should form part of the same, same kind of service?
Look, at the end of the day, it depends on the vehicle category, because obviously your vehicle cannot be older than 5 years. So a lot of the meter cabs that are out there currently, their vehicles are older than that. Some of them do bring in new vehicles, but they don't bring it in as often as possible. So vehicle quality, obviously, that is something that needs to be kept in mind. There are, unfortunately, I don't want to take bread out of somebody else's mouth if their vehicle is older than 5 years and they've been in the system or operating and working for long periods of time. I don't think that is fair. So, but in the same sense, the newer guys that are operating with regards to e-hailing and everything should not be construed just as, you know, a meter cab or e-hailing or anything. If they want to operate on both platforms or both things, shouldn't they be given an opportunity as well?
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I just want to get a sense of whether you know the fleet of Uber and Taxify drivers in PE from when it was launched and now. Do you have any idea?
Look, it fluctuates quite often. At the moment, if I'm not mistaken, I stand to be corrected. There is plus minus, say, 350 Uber drivers and partners and things operating within Port Elizabeth. With regards to Taxify, I can't really answer, but Vince will be able to answer.
With Taxify, when Taxify first launched, they wanted 120 cars. With the first round of consultation, 136 guys signed up. Taxify at the moment is running, I can't give you the exact amount of active cars, but it's just over 260 Taxify cars in PE at the moment.
And then one of the things that we've heard is that because a lot of the e-hailing drivers are facing financial constraints, some of them have had their cars repossessed. Are you also experiencing the same trend with the increase in the numbers, but also in terms of whether they remain on the system or they then get removed because they cannot deal with the financial constraints that they have?
Look, that is happening to quite a number of people. What's going on, if they still do have their platform active, they can either choose, do they want to go and drive for somebody, or do they want to see how they can work to get back on the platform with their own vehicle? Ideally, the best scenario would be to drive for yourself, because your profit margins you see higher than actually driving for somebody at the end of the day. But what do you do if you cannot afford or can't get a bank to actually approve you for a vehicle or to get financing or anything like that? You don't have a choice but to then drive for somebody and then try and save that money up and then try and get your vehicle. But then you're sitting with a problem at the end of the day. Do you get an Uber slot? Do you get a Taxify slot? Currently, Taxify still has open slots available, but Uber has cut all slots off. They are not taking any new vehicles or anything like that. So if you do buy a vehicle and you're only operating on Uber, there's no guarantee that you are going to get a slot. Uber has their own mechanism of granting people slots. They look at how many years you're running, how often have you been working, and all of those things as well. They do grant drivers now and then opportunity. There's so many slots that are open. We want to give it to old drivers, but there's no guarantee if you do buy your own vehicle.
Okay. And then in terms of compliance with regards to having operating licenses, do you have a sense of the percentage of drivers for both Uber and Taxify that are operating with or without licenses?
Unfortunately not. The only people that will be able to answer that is the apps themselves, because obviously all those documents and things get loaded onto their systems, and they will be able to determine who's actually have operating licenses and who's operating with receipts.
And then the last question I have is something you raised in your presentation regarding the unfair opportunities for women in transport. And I'm not sure whether you were speaking generally or you were speaking specifically in relation to your experience as an Uber driver. So I wanted you to just elaborate on what you meant by that.
Okay, I'm speaking basically from an experience from as a woman driver, Uber driver. You know, when people see you as a female and you're coming to fetch them, they're like so shocked. Unfortunately, we don't have a choice. I cannot sit at home twiddling my thumbs waiting for something to happen or anything like that. If I need to make a salary and income or earn a living, that is unfortunately, I have a driver's license. Why should I not use that as an opportunity? You know, I also have found that even with regards to any other modes of transport, even with the bus companies, you see a very small margin of female drivers out there. The margin is not very big and the opportunity is not really being given as much as what the males are, unfortunately, the breadwinners in the family. There's some cases that the females are also the breadwinners in the family, and we need to be given opportunity as well. Do not just sit back. We also want to be uplifted. We also want to be owners of transport in different transport areas and things like that. And I mean, the only way that we're going to be able to do that is if we grasp the opportunity and just go for it. I mean, I fight with Uber on a daily basis to get more females and things like that on the platform. I do understand some females are scared. Some females do feel intimidated when dealing with certain clients and things like that. But I'm very straightforward. If you treat me with disrespect, I will treat you with disrespect. If you treat me with respect, I will treat you accordingly. So at the end of the day, it's how you handle the situation on the road as well. But never feel intimidated with regards to people. There's always people willing to help.
Yeah, you have, Ms. Malchus talked about the flexibility that the e-hailing service providers are able to provide to commuters in terms of, you know, flexibility in terms of being able to respond to requests to be picked up at certain points and the like. And you have also talked about the self-employment opportunities that the service has been able to provide to people who are employed within the city. I would just like to find out what the impact has been of the introduction of e-hailing services in the city on the traditional meter taxi industry.
Look, I can't really speak too much on that. A lot of the actual meter taxis have come over to join Uber as well. If they have the means or they have access to funding or whatever, they made ways to actually integrate themselves into the Uber system as well. But maybe he will be able to grant you more information on that.
Hello, Chair. There has been an impact for old meter cab industry, but there was also challenges in the old meter cab industry as well, where we would have, for example, pirate taxis, who would just buy a taxi sign from Midas and operate. So we also had our challenges, how we were affected also, and we couldn't capture the market properly. Also being in the old meter cab industry, I mean, you would pay marketing, for example, in a month, and it might not pay off. Whereas with Uber, when they came in, and with their commission structure that they started with, we found it more feasible to give Uber that money, and they would guarantee us the business. So Uber coming along has improved a lot. They did a lot better than what we were doing. But there were also challenges in the old meter cab industry. And going forward, I mean, myself, I moved forward with Uber, and I'm quite happy with it. So the challenges that we faced before, and you know, a lot of them has got impacted, and a lot of companies has closed up, probably more on reluctancy to join and reluctancy to follow technology. Because I mean, with Uber, everything is on the app. The way you charge, you know, seeing the person, having a history of, you know, who they are, because you can rate them, other drivers do rate them. So you feel more secure, you feel more safe. You know that someone is watching you on every trip. They do provide security options and all these things. We didn't have that in the meter cab industry. So they were doing from A to Z better than us. So those of us who could obviously join and join the wave, we've we've benefited from that. But those who haven't and were more reluctant, I would say they didn't benefit from that. That's what I can give you.
So after the introduction of e-hailing services within the city, did that see a decline in the number of minibus, meter taxi operators, or did the situation remain the same?
I would say there was a decline. For the sole purpose being, Uber obviously has come in as being more affordable. So there was a small portion of the market that would utilize meter cabs. It wasn't so widespread. What Uber has come in, by making it more affordable, they've actually widened that market. They've actually made more people come on board to utilize this type of industry, whereas everyone wasn't using it. But there definitely was a decline. I would say simply because Uber has been more efficient. I mean, for a meter cab, you would be sitting at a rank, and whereas I would be operating by the airport. So we would pick up clients from the airport or wherever your specific rank was. But with Uber, they sort of cut out that dispatch to go into a client. Because someone that's close by to you would obviously have a request, and it pings to that person that's close to them. So they cut out the dispatch going to them, which makes the price more affordable. Because when it came to the meter industry, that wasn't as efficient. So you would, for example, take a client from the airport and maybe take them to Uitenhage, but you didn't have a trip coming from Uitenhage back to the airport. So that 10 kilometers you would drive out. Whereas with Uber, you drop someone, maybe KwaMakaki, someone requests you in KwaMakaki, you end up going to New Brighton, someone requests you there, you end up going back to Central. So you profit along the way because of your short dispatch and because there is a market out there. And I mean, Uber, before, we never used to transport kids the way we do it now, the disabled. I mean, we take people that come in wheelchairs as well, we assist them. We take people that pick up their kids from a nursery. I mean, we take people from the taxi ranks to their respective place because obviously the taxi doesn't go specifically to the door. And we take them also, like for example, from the hospitals to the taxi rank where they utilize the minibus taxis, which is obviously more affordable. So we work hand in hand where we can, but the meter cab industry, I mean, like I said, we use the app, everything's on the app. For them, they had to install a meter, and there's all this type of protocol that they had to go through. So for those who joined over to Uber, they have benefited. But yes, obviously there was a decline due to obviously the inefficiency that was already in the meter cab industry, whereas Uber has improved that. And that's obviously the reason for their popularity and why they are chosen amongst commuters.
And what has been the impact of the moratorium that you spoke about in relation to the issuing of operating licenses for meter taxis on the growth of e-hailing services within the city?
Well, at the moment, obviously, the moratorium is stopping us from getting any type of permits. Because they're not even utilizing or granting permits under e-hailing. They say to us that the application is for meter taxis. The department branch over here is only concentrating on meter cab taxis. And that is where the problem comes in. When the bill actually is granting us an opportunity for e-hailing, they have now taken the whole thing and said, no, the moratorium is on meter cab taxis because the municipal is running the survey. The impact of that whole thing is we obviously want to be legal on the road. We do not want to not follow policies and procedures with regards to our government and our municipalities. We are pushing them, as well as ourselves, to actually commit to something at the end of the day. Give us deadlines, give us timelines, so we can know what we have to work towards. If there is problems or issues, tell us what you need assistance with, how we can help out there, because obviously we're the ones benefiting. We're the ones that are working, you know, with those permits and everything. So if they are constantly keeping quiet as the department and as the municipality and everything, how are we going to be operating properly? How are we going to be operating within legal bounds? At the end of the day, we are operating illegally. So we need to come to some form of understanding with the help of the commission and everything that they are put under deadline as much as possible. They can't just say, sorry, we can't grant you permits based on the fact that we're waiting for the municipality to run their survey. How long is the survey going to take? What is the process that you're taking for the survey? Are you having public hearings with the communities and people at large, or with even us as the Uber and Taxify e-hailers out there, and the meter cab associations? What do we need to do to work as a common ground, as a common goal over here at the end of the day? That is the issues and the most important issue and the problem that we're having right now at the moment. The non-communication from the department as well as the municipality at large. I mean, if the political heads don't even know what's going on with regards to the monetarium, how am I supposed to understand that they're using this as a basis for ITPS, the BRT, as well as the meter cab taxis, because they're actually using ITPS and the illegal meter cabs as a, as an excuse for the survey. Granted, tell us what we need to do in order to move forward.
Just to add on what Carmen said, my question to the committee would be, I'm operating with a legal permit which expire in November. Now, if the Department of Transport placed a moratorium and my permit expire, I have a family to feed. Who is operating illegally then? Is it Uber allowing me to operate, or am I operating illegally? I have an onus on my family to put bread on the table for them, and from my point of view, I'm going to operate. I have to, because I've got financial obligations to meet. And it's very frustrating for us not knowing the way forward, or whether my permit's going to be renewed, or whether I'm going to be operating illegally and stand a chance of having my car impounded.
So I think just to follow up on what you have just said, Mr. Matthews. So does the moratorium apply to both renewals as well as new operating licenses for?
Yes, the moratorium applied to renewal of permits also. So in my case, I'm operating legally, but the concern that I have is once my permit expires, what then? What would be the way forward? I don't want to operate illegally. I don't want to run the cost of, or run the risk of having my car impounded, and then have that cost, occur the cost of getting my car out of the pound. And that's a decision that's out of my control, getting the permit sorted.
At the time when the moratorium was imposed, which I think Ms. Malchas indicated was sometime last year.
Last year around June side, yeah.
Was there a surge in applications for meter taxi operating licenses? In other words, was the moratorium a response to some kind of a surge in applications for meter taxi operating licenses?
The ladies at the department has indicated, because they get on a weekly basis as per their indication, because obviously if you have more than one car, you have to do an application individually. You can't do one bulk application for 2 to 3 cars. So they have indicated there was an influx, a very high influx to 200 to 300 applications per month.
Sorry, Chair, if I can just...
So as far as because you are in the industry, but did you observe the influx? Was there an influx?
On the occasions that I was at the office, there was the office wasn't packed, as per what they've indicated. The only thing that I actually just saw was 4 or 5 people coming in to come and do requests for permits and everything. And it's always just the same thing. They would try and find out immediately what it's for. If you do indicate it's for Uber, then they block you. Then you have to come back and say that it's for a meter taxi cab, and then they will do the whole process so you can go pay for the application. But I didn't see like the whole room with regards to the application center where they actually do everything being filled as per what they indicated. They're saying they're getting 300 applications every month, but I haven't seen that. Maybe it's because people are actually launching fleets, which can easily be between 5 to 10 cars. And that is also a problem that they were sitting with, that too many people were bringing in fleets of cars to operate.
Mr. Dula, it seems as if you wanted to say something.
Sorry, just something small. When I applied, I also applied last year, around June, July, somewhere around there. I did get approved. But my understanding is on the basis that you can prove you have business for this vehicle or for this license, that it would get approved to you. So if you could prove that you had business for this vehicle and this operating license, you would get it granted. So our understanding obviously is that there is business for the e-hailers when they apply. There is proof that they will get money out of this permit. Please assist us and let us operate legally.
Just back to the scope of the moratorium, does it also cover the traditional meter taxi operators, not necessarily operators who want to provide e-hailing services? Are you aware?
Well, according to the department, it was all meter taxi permits was stopped and a moratorium was put on all of them.
All right, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Malchas, Mr. Matthews, and Mr. Dula for your presentation as well as for your time. We will certainly take up the issues that you have raised with the relevant stakeholders, including the city as well as the Provincial Department of Transport. Thank you very much. You are excused. Or just an announcement. I'm told that lunch, unfortunately, is delayed and will only be served at 2 o'clock. Yeah, apparently it will be served at the room at the back at 2 o'clock. You are welcome to join us for lunch. We will be back after the lunch adjournment at 2:45, which is 2:45. Thank you. representation from Spectrum Alert. But before we do that, we would like to profusely apologize for the delay in terms of the delayed lunch. Unfortunately, the situation was completely out of our hands. But we would like to sincerely apologize for that delay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your patience. We would also like to extend an apology to yourselves, and we really appreciate your staying as well as your patience. Thank you very much. We will just start with the formalities. If you could please take an oath or the affirmation. There is a mic on the table. You can use that mic.
I, Teresa Heidenreich, swear that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hendricks.
I, Mr. Winston van Rooyen, swear that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you very much.
I, Christian King, swear that the evidence that I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lesofe, I understand that you'll be leading this presentation.
Indeed, thank you, Chair. Mr. King, I assume you will lead the discussion from your side. Thank you very much. If we could start, if you could just start by giving us your background.
Thank you, Chairperson, Program Director. And very good afternoon to the audience out here. First of all, we are taxi operators from the informal taxi industry, and we are participants in the IPTS program with an agreement with the municipality to operate the bus system on behalf of the city. That's what we are.
Thank you. And which taxi association do you come from and do you represent?
We are actually from two associations. Myself, I'm from NATOA, which is Northern Areas Taxi Operators Association, and the lady, Mrs. Heidenreich, is from Algoa Taxi Association. And together we have formed a vehicle operating company to do the services for the city.
Thanks. And if you could just identify the routes that were and are still being serviced by NATOA. Ms. Hendricks would do the same in relation to Alcoa as well.
Thank you, Chair. The trunk route is from Clary Park Shopping Center all along Stanford Road to the CBD. And then currently we have three feeder routes which extend beyond Clary Park to Boysons Park, to Extension 31, and also to Klein School. Now, those are the routes that we have agreed upon for the interim phase 1A. And we still have other routes that that should be added as we get along and just observe whether the system is working. Thank you.
Perhaps if Ms. Hendricks could also, I'm not sure if you operate similar
same.
routes. It's the same
the
routes?
same.
Okay, all right, thank you. And you mentioned that the two associations jointly run a VOC. Is that Spectrum Alert?
That's correct.
Yes, that is correct.
And if you could just take us through the circumstances that led to the formation of the VOC, including when was the VOC formed?
Both taxi associations is operating on the same route, same area, and the two formed one VOC to run the same route together. So municipality was not prepared to do business with two different associations. So we had to form one VOC, and then they negotiate with the same board of directors of AGOA Taxi Association and Northern Areas Taxi Operators.
And are the two associations the only associations that are affected in the area where the VOC operates?
Yes, that's the only two taxi operators at that side.
Can I just add to that? Pardon. Though we have operators that are via the Clary Park route, they are not actually servicing. They actually load beyond Boyson's Park and other surrounding areas, but ferrying the people to the CBD or to Causton area, they via the Stanford Road route, but the system does not affect their operations.
Thank you. And we understand that there is also an entity known as Lapumilang. Do you have any relations with that entity? Have you had any relations with the entity, if not?
Unfortunately not, Chairperson. I think that is an entity that is dormant at this stage because they ceased to operate some 3 years ago. I don't know what transpired there, but the city then wanted to negotiate with associations. I think legislation makes it clear that the affected operators of the associations should be consulted, and I think that's exactly what the city has done.
Okay. Were you a part of Lapumilang at some point?
I think somebody actually whispered in your ear. Yes, Chairperson. Yes, Chairperson, I was part of that structure. But Chairperson, it was during their operational, or I don't know whether I should regard that as operations, because they never had any physical operations that one can actually identify them as an operator. They had their office and the officials and so forth, but there was never a talk or even a plan of the operations. That is why at some given point I decided just on my own that this is a waste of time. And then I actually withdrew my participation from that structure.
And when was Spectrum Alert formed?
Spectrum Alert was registered in July 2017. But prior to that, we registered 2 association-based companies in order for us to participate here in the VOC, because there's Algoa Taxi Association has got the association-based company Spectrum, and NATOA is alert. We are always alert. So, when we got together in that negotiations, we decided to have the Spectrum alert form, Chairperson.
Thank you. Perhaps before we get to the negotiations, if you could just describe for us Spectrum Alert's structure, including the management and the board structure.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. We have a board of directors comprising of 10 individuals. We actually took the initiative to have the five board members of the 2 association-based companies actually to form this negotiating team. And it was the negotiating team that actually landed up as the board of directors. Now, there's the board. Then, can I just move one step back? We have shareholders. The shareholders is the members of the 2 associations. Now, I want you to know on the onset that not all of them are shareholders. Not all the members of the associations are shareholders. Some of them have opted to stay on the outside because of their modus operandi. They still have contracts and other operations that they are busy with. So therefore, you should know that not everybody is a shareholder. But as we speak, we have 174 shareholders of the VOC. And we have a fleet of taxis, which is 198. We have a management structure. We have a CEO, we have a CFO, we have a HR manager, we have an operations manager, we have a payroll office, we have a depot manager, and from the depot manager we have all the supervisors and all of those. And currently we have 376 employees at the VOC. We are operating the feeder routes. We are operating with the minibus taxis, and we are operating the trunk service with the articulated buses, the buses that was leased from the city. Actually, for Mahala, we don't pay for the buses. We are only responsible for the maintenance of the buses, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. In your management structure, if you could give us a sense in terms of how many positions are held by former taxi operators. Are there any positions that are held by former taxi operators?
Chairperson, yes. I am a taxi operator for over 20 years, and I'm the CEO of the VOC. The lady next to me, she's the depot manager, and she's also operational with taxis for quite a number of years. Now, the only positions that we have outsourced at this moment is the HR department, the CFO, and the payroll. That is the only, and the operations manager. That is the only positions that we have outsourced. But all other positions are filled by taxi operators.
And were you part of the outsourcing process?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Now, if we could go to the TPTS project.
IPTS. IPTS.
I beg your pardon. IPTS. Yes. So, what is your current arrangement with the city in relation to that project?
Okay. The city works out the schedule for the services that they expect us to render. We have to work out our way bills and our operational matters. So we are getting paid for the kilometers that we are traveling. And at this stage, we have 100 taxis that we have parked in the depot. It is a bit unhealthy vehicles that we are parking. It's some of the vehicles that were operational, but they were servicing the trunk route area. In order for us to make the bus service lucrative, we had to remove some of the taxis from the route. So that is where we at this stage. The city also pay us the compensation for the taxis, which is an amount of 7,700 rand per month per vehicle. And then we have the lease vehicles that we are rendering the feeder service that is 13,000 rand per month per vehicle. Now the VOC is actually the recipient of the funding, and then we distribute amongst the shareholders.
So, just to make sure that I understand you well, the 7,000 that you've referred to now, is that what you are paid over and in addition to what you mentioned earlier in relation to the kilometers?
Yes, that's in addition to that.
And is the 7,700 per month per vehicle, is this compensation for the minibus taxis that you said are unhealthy and had to be parked?
That's correct.
At home, and you mentioned that this is, in terms of number, it's about 100 minibus taxis.
That is correct, sir.
And then the 13,000, excuse me, the 13,000, it's for the VOC leasing the minibus taxis from the operators.
That's correct, sir.
And how many vehicles are we talking about, those which are on lease?
We are talking about 98 vehicles, but for the 3-month period, because our operation is only now for 3 months. The day after tomorrow, we will be in operation for 3 months. But now for the past 3 months that the vehicles are parked there, we have only managed to have 83 vehicles that we are invoicing the city for the lease money. Because there's some of them, if the license or the operating license of the vehicle have expired, then unfortunately the city is not prepared to pay us for that. So we are just busy sorting that issues. But at the same token, I need to also mention that we are also responsible for now to pay the HP of the vehicles, because some of the operators have vehicles that are still under HP. So the VOC currently, because that is a matter that we need to still engage the city about, so that we can get a resolve on that one. Because ultimately the city should take responsibility for paying those HP vehicles, because if I look at and do my calculation, there's a vehicle, for example, that has got 11,000 HP per month. Now, if they give me 2,000, I cannot give that operator just 2,000, and the other operator receive that amount of money. So we have tried our utmost to level the playing field and give everybody that has ceded his vehicle to the VOC the same amount of money, and we are taking care of the HP as well.
Thank you. Now, your current arrangement with the municipality, is it governed by a written contract? Do you have a written contract with the municipality?
We do have. We do have.
And what is the duration of the contract?
The duration is 3 years, the starter service. Now, it was our understanding that during this period, the starter service period, we will commence with the negotiations for the 12-year contract, so that we get full participation of all the operators in that 12-year contract.
And from how you explained your operation, it appears that your model, it's a hybrid model.
That's right.
And it seems to be different from the model that is used in other cities. Why did you choose this kind of model?
You know, Chairperson and the audience, I think it is important that we understand the taxi operations, and even our customers for that matter. It will not be a mind change overnight. We thought that this would be the best suitable vehicle to utilize the taxis, in order for the commuters also to understand that this is the taxi industry, so that we cannot find a situation where people will still maintain they want the taxis as their mode of transport. I think the reason also for opting to utilize the minibuses, those area routes, it is easy accessible for a minibus taxi than to operate a bus in that area. Hence the reason why we said rather let us, for the interim phase, let us have the minibus taxis, and maybe at a later stage, if we can manage to scrap those park taxis that are on the depot, so that we can procure minibuses, which is a bus that will be able to operate on that same route.
You mentioned earlier that not all operators are part of the VOC. Are you in a position to estimate the number of operators who are not part of the VOC?
They are just over 100. Also, one of the reasons why we don't have full participation of the taxi operators, there are still two very lucrative routes, the area routes, that that are not being serviced by the current IPTS project. So it will be suicide if we say, let us remove all those taxis, or everybody must just come on board simultaneously, and then those commuters will not be able to receive services from the VOC.
And are there any operators who service the IPTS project routes who decided not to be part of the VOC?
You see, I'm saying that yes, there are. I think the legacy left by La Pumilanga, there were some that were playing a waiting game. They wanted to see whether this thing is going to materialize. And in the meantime, they did not realize that this was the plan. I think they attended meetings, all of them were afforded an opportunity. I need to reiterate that. They were afforded that opportunity, but it is out of their free will that they are not participants at this stage.
And what do they do currently? Do they compete with the VOC, or what is the arrangement?
I can't say that they are competing, because majority of them are operating on the routes that are not serviced by the VOC. I mentioned earlier that some routes are on the periphery of the area which we are servicing. So they do conduct their services from there, and then they just via our route of the trunk services.
Okay. If we could talk briefly about the role that is played by the municipality in relation to the IPTC project. What is the municipality's role here?
The municipality is actually monitoring, and they are also responsible for distribution of tickets, and they are also responsible for the infrastructure and all other related matters of that. So the city, however, or the officials, we do have a very good relationship with them. I think I must say that the project manager, who is a young and vibrant guy, and I think he's got a passion for what he's doing, and I think that is assisting this program a great deal.
I assume they are also responsible for revenue collection.
That's correct.
Okay. And do they share any information with you in relation to, revenue collection?
Yes, they do.
How much has been collected and the distribution thereof?
Yes, they do, but it's not on a regular basis. And I think that is, there are some issues that we just need to just tie up some loose ends, and in order for us in moving forward, we can all be on the same page at all times.
What do you mean when you say not on a regular basis?
I have expected that for this interim period, especially now that we are 3 months in operations, that we should get information maybe once a month so that we can also understand that this is the shortcoming, so that when negotiating we can also advise on certain issues, how we can improve on certain things. I can also just mention that in the planning, I think there was an oversight on the distribution outlets for the ticket sales. I think that is one of the shortcomings, and I think that is one of the issues that is actually not enabling us to operate on our full potential. Because so many people, if they are without tickets, then they would rather jump in a Jigileza or whatever mode of transport.
And then in terms of the procurement of services such as cleaning and security services, whose responsibility is that?
I think we are very fortunate as a VOC that we have trained securities, and it is an ongoing program that we are training our own securities. We first scrutinize and see who is fit for that specific field, and then we get them trained, and the security will eventually be our responsibility. Currently, we do have a security company in the form of Fidelity that is assisting the city with the security service at the depot. I think there's a simple answer to that. Our securities don't have a firearm compliance, but though there are few that we have managed to put through training, and some of them came there with their competency certificates for firearms. So in the very near future, we will have the security conducted by ourselves. When it comes to cleaning, we are making use of the industry staff, the conductors, and some of the other people that were actually working at the taxi ranks. So we are occupying them for the cleaning services at the depot, vehicles, and also the premises.
And are there any services that have required you to appoint external service providers?
Not at this stage. Not at this stage.
Okay. It's still early days, but I wonder if you could just comment on the performance of the VOC thus far. Are you attracting good numbers? Are you seeing anything positive?
Yes. If I can give us in a scale of 10, then I would say we are at 7 when it comes to attracting customers, because we do every now and then receive comments that the customers are very happy with the services that we are rendering.
Thank you. So I'm asking you this question because there is currently some sort of a debate in the industry, and this debate is largely based on the performance of other BRT systems in other cities. And a number of concerns have been raised. One of the major concerns is that the BRT systems are failing to increase ridership, and as a result, they can't reduce their costs, their operational costs. Instead, those costs are increasing, and this has essentially resulted in them expecting even their subsidies from government to be increased. And when you look at the fares that they generate, they are substantially low. So essentially, in other cities, the picture doesn't look good. And there have been questions about whether the BRT system is sustainable. So that's the context within which I pose the question. And perhaps with all of these factors in mind, from your perspective, are you not likely to face similar challenges as time progresses?
Chairperson, thank you. I think the city with the operators have done an excellent job to come this far with this project. And I want to put it to yourselves, come next year this time, and you will see the results, because on a daily, weekly basis, monthly basis, there is an increase in the ridership. I have one concern that I have raised with the city, is the distribution of the ticket sales. You see, if we can have more outlets, because currently we have 2 outlets of the city. But with my discussion with the project manager, they have procured some facilities for the ticket sales. Now, that will also be work that will be not outsourced, it will be internally of the VOC, that we will have people at the ticket sales as well. We will just have to work out the dynamics as to how are we going to get our fingers on the tickets. Do we need to buy it? Because currently the VOC buys tickets at the outlets of the municipality, and then we redistribute. But at the same time, I can also say that we are making a profit on the ticket sales, though it is minimal, but it is a profit at the end of the day.
Overall, would you say operators, that is your shareholders, are happy to be part of the VOC?
Very, very much, Chairperson. So much so that there are other members of associations which are not affected by this service, colleagues of the taxi industry, and whenever I speak with them, they want to know the possibility of them participating here in phase 1A. And unfortunately, I cannot agree on that matters. But very seriously, even tomorrow, the provincial regulatory entity, they are considering applications tomorrow. So the taxi leadership and representatives will be there. And I think I will go one further to bring along some of them to this hearing tomorrow. The hearing is starting at 8, maybe say 9:30 or so. I will ask them to come here. They can actually testify what I'm saying.
Thank you very much. One of the thorny issues that has arisen in other cities is the issue in relation to the 12-year contracts that VOCs conclude with municipalities. So operators in other cities have raised this as a concern, because their main concern is that it is not guaranteed that after 12 years they will continue running the operations, mainly because after 12 years there will be a tender process, and with the tender process nothing is guaranteed. Just to get your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, I've got a total different opinion on that matter. You see, if I look at 12 years and my planning and everything is correct, then the operation will be a success. And after that 12-year period, I don't see anybody coming from out of space, not knowing the operations, and come and beat me to that with that tender. I think this is an opportunity, and I've got my foot in the door, and I think it's entirely up to me as to how I conduct the service. That will be the determining factor. I cannot operate this project with so many problems, and then I expect that after the 12-year period, the city should just say to me, no, it's fine, I will keep you here. If I cannot improve what I have now over this period, then they must kick me out, Chairperson. And I think that is what I'm trying to rub off here at the other shareholders and other members.
Do other shareholders actually share that sentiment?
Yes, Chairperson, yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lesufa. Mr. Ngobeni.
Thank you, Chair. Just to understand the compensation agreements, what is the current status? Are they finalized? Are they completed at the moment?
Yes, we have concluded that compensation agreement for the period of 3 years.
Okay, and everyone is happy?
Everyone is happy.
And the way I understand it is that at the conclusion of these, after 3 years, then what is going to happen? Is there going to be further discussions on?
Yes, Chairperson. Within this 3-year period, we will resume the negotiations for the 12-year contract.
Okay. And I'm just trying to understand, so what was the the process followed in terms of your operating licenses, where they, because we understand in other provinces they, they've been taken away. Yeah.
No, something different, Chairperson. The VOC is actually taking that operating license in their possession, and we are also responsible for renewal and all of those things of those operating license. We did not cede it to the city.
Okay. And you mentioned in your, one of the questions you gave to Mr. Lissoufé that there is a feeder system, that some of the taxis are they operating what you refer to as a feeder system. Is this a feeder system to Spectrum Alert?
That's correct.
And what are these still, the operators from the two associations, Alcoa and
NATOA.
And NATOA, okay. And just to understand, from the area where you're from, the northern areas, were there other associations that were in competition with you, or was it just NATOA?
No, it was just the two associations.
Just the two associations. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ngobeni. Mr. Mandiris.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to get clarity on the compensation. I think you mentioned 7,700 and the 13,000 that you mentioned. What is the duration? You said it's per month. I just wanted to know, is it going to be per month for 3 years?
That's correct, Chair.
Right. Then what's going to happen in the 4th year?
Chairperson, as I stated previously, we are going to commence with the negotiations for the 12-year contract. And I think legislation is clear that the operators should have a negotiated contract for that period. Now you see this starter service, or this was actually to test the system because of the history with Lapumilanga. The system couldn't be sustainable. So the city opted to have this period so that they can test the system as well.
Is that why the motivation to retain the operating license?
Yes.
As a VOC, so that you test the system and if it doesn't work, at least members of the VOC still have their operating license and they're able to go.
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. Because I think it's a unique.
Yes.
It's a unique system from what you have seen everywhere. They cede the licenses to
Yes.
to the province. I think you also so this starter service, the 3 years that you refer to, from the experience of Lapumilanga, are you confident that everything would go on well from the way we are assessing the situation at the moment?
Yes, Chairperson. I am very confident.
What are the lessons that you have brought into the VOC from Lapumilanga? What was going on wrong there that you have tried to fix in this current VOC?
Chairperson, first of all, the operators were never consulted with Lapumilanga. So much so that the opinions of other operators were not considered. And it was only the management of Lapumilanga at the time that actually took decisions on behalf of everyone. As much as I tried to convince them to consult with the affected operators, they wouldn't listen. I think Mr. Browning is here to actually he's aware that I was there, and I said, no guys, we are not doing this thing correctly. So I am confident that we are on the right track here, Chairperson.
Over and above the shareholders that you have mentioned in the VOC, does the VOC have a board?
That's correct.
And how is it composed?
We have 5. It's 10 directors, 5 from each association. And now I say association because that's where we got the starting point from.
And the municipality? Is it involved?
No,
in
they
that?
are not serving on the board, Chairperson. They are participating when it comes to negotiating meetings.
Did the municipality assist in terms of, appointing service providers to structure the VOC?
Yes.
And if you can mention some of the services that they have assisted you in structuring the VOC.
Mr. Browning was one of our technical advisors, and we had an attorney that assisted us with legal matters of the contract issues and so on. And they had responsibility to foot that bill on behalf of us.
Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Nantomban.
Just a few questions from my side. The first one is to just confirm there was no lump sum payment on the compensation model.
No.
It's only the amounts you mentioned.
That's correct.
Okay. And then another question I had was with regards to the determination of fares for the routes. Was that the municipality or was that Spectrum Alert?
No, that's the municipality.
Okay.
Chairperson.
And do you know how the fares were determined?
Chairperson, I don't want to commit myself to saying that I was aware how it was done, but I saw the projections and whatever that the city have compiled in order to derive at this figures that they came about. So we did not have any input on that matters. But when it came to the compensation, that was actually our initiative to say this is what we will be comfortable with.
Okay. And then just on the operating licenses, earlier we heard that there is a moratorium that is currently in place for the issuing of operating licenses in the city. And I just wanted to find out whether that is also your experience in terms of renewals, as well as new application for the members of the two taxi associations, especially those that would have opted out.
Chairperson, as far as I'm concerned, the last board sitting where they considered the applications, renewals were approved. If there was an operating license that have lapsed, they actually grant us that renewal. Now, I think the city will explain the rationale behind their decision of increasing the fleet at this stage. I think I will not dwell much into that matter because I might just put myself at risk because people might just say, hey, you are the devil. So I will refrain from making any comments on that one, Chairperson.
Can you clarify how many buses, those that you said were provided to you for free? How many buses are we talking about?
It's 25 buses, Chairperson, but it's not for free, it's for mahala.
So these are buses that are in the trunk route.
That's correct, Chairperson.
More or less in terms of what are the levels of ridership of these buses, just very roughly?
Chairperson, we have over 7,000 at this stage. I just need to get a breakdown of the trunk route versus the feeder routes. But I think, pardon, if I look at the statistics, we, I think I'm getting old.
All of us are.
Chairperson, information now is that
On Friday's meeting, the ridership is not what we want for 7,000 on the bus, on the trunk route yet. We're under the total there, but together with the feeder and the bus together, we jumped up to 54,000 for last month alone.
And is it, that is per month?
That was just for July.
For July?
Yes. We jumped from about 30,000 up to 54,000.
And I assume then that the feeder routes are serviced by the 83 leased vehicles or minibus taxis that you mentioned.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Now, because now you have a split of 25 buses on the trunk and 83 vehicles
feeders
on the feeder. Is it correct then to assume that it seems as if there is more demand? There is more demand for your services on the feeder than there is on the trunk route.
That's correct, Chairperson. Because we're not utilizing all the routes yet, that's why the demand is more on the feeder side.
So does it mean that commuters utilize your services for the feeder routes but terminate their journeys at the trunk route and opt for other options? And if there are those options, what are those options on the trunk route?
Okay, Chairperson, it is not another option. If we look at the feeder routes, then about 50% of those commuters comes to the shopping complex. There's a shopping complex there at Clary Park, and they are coming from the residence to the shopping complex. And then they don't see a need to travel any further. They conduct all their businesses here.
So I just want to understand the design. So does this mean that the trunk route is servicing commuters who are traveling from the shopping complex to the city?
Chairperson, and also along the route. If you look at Stanford Road, how it is designed, a lot of commuters within walking distance from the stations, and then they can just come to the stations and board the bus along the route. But the commuters boarding the bus at Clary Park, there's about 60% coming with the feeder taxis to Clary Park in order for them to board the bus to the CBD.
You say it's about 60%.
Yes.
Those who convert their journeys
that-
to
What I'm saying, Chairperson, the commuters on the trunk bus, on the bus, 60% of those commuters comes from the feeders.
via the fee. Oh.
Yeah, that is what I'm trying to explain.
All right. If you could also then also clarify because we just want to understand the need for the buses on the trunk route. What was the deficiency on the trunk route that necessitated the need for this model?
Chairperson, in order for the city to have a more stable transport system, I think whether it was not the trunk buses, whether it was ordinary buses, I think there's a lot of factors that actually gave rise to that decision, because one of them was the safety aspect. Now, the efficiency also plays a major role, because if I had to board a taxi here in the CBD and I travel to Clary Park, then that taxi will via 2 other suburbs that is very inefficient, because I will get to Clary Park about 30 minutes to an hour later instead of traveling the straight line with a bus. I think that is what actually prompted them to have it on this route, Chairperson.
And are your schedules responsive to
Yes,
to
Chairperson.
commuter needs?
Yes.
And then you mentioned that you've got 174 shareholders. How are they being compensated in terms of dividends?
Chairperson, at this stage we have not generated any profits. In other words, we don't have any dividends to distribute. At the moment we are only paying the compensation which we receive from the city.
Yeah, I think those will be my questions. Thank you very much. I think for a very helpful and a very detailed presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
I think you are excused. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you, people.
That will bring us to the end of today's session. We will resume tomorrow at 9 o'clock. No, it's 9. Yeah, we will resume at 9. The first presentation will be from the Algoa Bus Company, followed by Santaco, and then the Eastern Cape Provincial Department of Transport, and lastly the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan Municipality. Thank you.